The State House has allocated 10 billion naira in the approved 2025 budget for the installation of a solar mini grid at the presidential villa. Now, this story has now sparked reactions amongst many on social media. This comes as the State House budget rose from 47.11 billion naira in the proposed draft to 57.11 billion naira in the approved version. The 10 billion naira increase was traced to a rise in capital expenditure, which grew from 33.55 billion to 43.55 billion. A breakdown shows the entire addition was earmarked for the project titled Solarization of the Villa with solar mini-grids. Now, the move is aimed at cutting reliance on the national grid and cushioning the impact of rising electricity tariffs on government operations. We have a look at some reactions to this story as well. This tweet from Cool Ustaz says, 10 billion for a solar mini-grid at the presidential villa. This is beyond excessive. It's an insult to the millions of Nigeria who are suffering without basic electricity, clean water, or decent healthcare. Under Tinubu's government, we're watching billions being spent to power luxury while the average Nigerian lives in blackouts. What happened to accountability? What happened to prioritizing the masses? This isn't governance, it's greed with the budget line. Another tweet from Uche says 150 million Nigerians now have access to electricity, according to the Minister of Power, Bayo Adelabu. Why we are now spending so much on installation of a solar mini grid at a presidential villa? By isolating the presidential villa from the entire Nigerians, that means there is a problem. Now, we often see situations like this when something happens at the presidential villa or a certain amount of money is earmarked to build a new infrastructure or buy a new plane. For the people, it still boils down to the standard of living. How do you juxtapose these expenses with the standard of living of the people? Does it add up in any way, shape, or form? Then, I'd like it to, just reel this in quickly.
Okay, well, 10 billion for a solar mini grid. Let's talk numbers. So yesterday it was revealed that the banks, I believe the banks have made over 40 trillion from interest, collecting from the increased interest rates from the manufacturing sector specifically. So the manufacturing sector has spent 1.3 trillion of their hard-earned cash on interest rates. They have spent 1.4 trillion on alternative power sources. So we're now at 2-point-something trillion, right? There was also a report just a few weeks ago, I believe it was last week, that the American tariffs are likely to cost the manufacturing sector another 2 to 3 trillion naira. We're now at about 5 to 6 trillion naira. And this is the productive sector of our economy. So if anybody needs their power to be subsidized or needs an installation of the power grid, a mini power grid or a solar grid, why are we not prioritizing the productive sector of our economy, which is going through untold hardship in this because of both domestic factors and external factors? So for me, this is a bit of a tone-deaf development, because when you look at, first of all, 10 billion is a massive amount of money. And for me, I think the focus right now should be on how do we spend our money productively? How does this translate into jobs? How does this translate into the reduction of inflation? How does this translate into food security for our people? At least if the solar grid was said to power irrigation systems into our farms, it would be something. At least if it was said to power some sort of security solutions, it would be something. But all of this for the presidential villa, I think it's very, very unfortunate, a wrong placement of priorities. And this money should be allocated, in my opinion, towards the productive sector of the economy. This is wasteful.
It is. Dr. Abate?
No, very briefly. I just think that when it comes to electricity supply, energy issues in Nigeria, it's important for the Nigerian government to think out of the Aso Rock box, because electricity is something that affects all of us. So if they say they are doing a mini solar grid and budgeting money for it for Aso Villa, how about the rest of Nigeria? The experts who know this subject, the analysts, the professors of law, energy law and all that, they have said, look, we need to decentralize the national grid. We need to look for alternative sources of energy. If they are enjoying solar in Aso Rock, why not provide solar energy also for other parts of Nigeria? 3, the discos and the gencos are saying that they are going to go on strike because they are being owed over 4 trillion naira. Even at a point, Aso Villa was a debtor to the gencos, to the discos, and they had to arrange to pay. Government institutions have not paid for their electricity bills. These are dimensions of the problem. The comfort of the current occupants of Aso Villa should not be the main priority. They should think in providing, in addressing the energy issues of Nigeria out of the Aso Villa box. This is my point.
Otherwise, I would have actually, because I didn't get to comment on the solar power story.
Yes.
But I know that the very basis of what's trending is to look at what the public has to say about it. But it would be interesting also to hear if there is any justification from the presidency as to why they think that this is a fitting situation. Do they think that the presidential villa being connected to electricity through solar power all the time would benefit Nigeria as a whole in terms of national security, the fact that they would constantly have power? Would there be some sort of knock-on effect to the rest of Nigeria? It would be interesting to hear what their justifications are, but I mean...
No, those who are in power should not think first of their own comfort. They should
is
think...
Is it comfort or is it access to power so that they can do the work of leading the country?
No.
Is it just comfort? Or is it, I mean, there's work being done at the villa, no?
No, that's neither here nor there.
Need a mini grid.
National security should not be interpreted in terms of the personal interest of the persons who are in power. National security should be in the interest of all of us. All of us are entitled to electricity. To link with the point she made about productivity. We will only be secure if we are productive, if we all have electricity. That's the intelligent point to be made.
And I think
Thank you very much, Kachi.
It still ties down to security as well, because when the people are okay in terms of basics, insecurity reduces rather.
Not for a few, for all of us.
For everybody.
Yes.
For everybody.
That is the point.
Again,
the common good. That's what is called the common good.